And sometimes you have siblings. One is in high school, the other one's in elementary school. How do you work on that particular schedule to make that happen? So that is another challenge that we face. The biggest one that's one of the biggest ones that's coming up this year is, as you well know, we're going to be transitioning to a new facility. And so the movement that we're going to be undertaking during the course of this year and into the beginning of next year will provide a challenge to us because of the communication with the drivers, the vehicle movements, and things of that sort. Our budget this year has gone up about 13% from approximately $2.3 million up to a little over $2.6 million. I'm just going to highlight some of the larger increases in the budget. One of the, which happens annually, it's outside our control. You have the annual step increases and the contractual increase of 2.5%, which accounts for almost $35,000, that $302,000 increase. The projected increase on health insurance, that's another $46,000 that's contained within there. And what's been, as I was just talking about before, the increase in special services demand, we've infused another $75,000 in labor costs. And as an example, without getting into a lot of detail, just what came on our doorstep in this particular year, and one just recently went away, but on a weekly basis, just to transport 2 students, we were expending about 70 hours in labor per week, and just to accommodate those particular students. So that's the type of challenges that we're facing on a week-in and week-out basis. The bus garage lease. For this particular year, it's going up because of moving into the facility at some portion of the year. It's going to be almost $59,000. And the bus lease purchase, that will be about just a little under $27,000. So generally, those are the larger increase areas, which takes up the lion's share of the $302,000. We can get into, if you have any questions, what vehicles we're looking to replace, so I'll just leave it to you as to where you want to go.
Okay. Questions?
Yeah, Mike, on that, along that line, we normally are on a replacement cycle, which you would think would keep the cost relatively smooth. So
Right.
The fact that there's more this year, is that because of a cost increase or is it because of an additional replacement?
Right. There was 2 things that occurred. Last year we had the opportunity to, I think you remember as a board, I think it was the latter part of the school year, we replaced a Type C bus. So that wasn't budgeted in last year's budget, because normally we're rolling out typically 2 buses, and so that made it a 3rd. So we had to add that cost in this year. The second piece of this equation is that we have 3 buses in this year, which we normally don't. The third one being is the that Type A bus. I don't know if we talked about that before, because we had a new student that came to us at the beginning of the school year, and what we had available was a minibus, but it's seen better days. And so we had to put that in for this particular year. So that pretty much, that's what the increase is all about.
Okay.
So the $27,000 for the bus lease purchase, that's for the 3 buses?
Well, it is more, what happened is we retired some of the leases, Kate, and
Okay.
so that absorbed the cost. And this is for the 3rd one that we bought last year that wasn't initially budgeted, and that 3rd one for this particular year. So it just takes up. So.
I got you. Thanks.
Other questions?
Yeah, if nobody else. Can you just give us a sense, do you know just roughly how many routes that we have where we're only transporting 1 student?
Off the top of my head, I think there just may be 1. There was 2, but like I said, one went away. And during the course of the day, we may have 1 that somebody would see in a vehicle. The reason being is it may be a customized schedule for whatever reason. So you may see a vehicle moving because we have to pick somebody up at, say, 9 o'clock in the morning and bring them to school and then bring them back home at 11. So it's just for that 1 student. There's no other need, no other students that have that schedule.
That's it for me.
Can I just ask you again? I know you probably just covered it, but the the $75,000 increase in the special service, is that because you have more routes and more drivers? Why is that so much higher?
It's because what has happened is that a lot of the program that we're sending students to did not exist several years ago, and especially when SEA went away, because a lot of the students we were transporting to a single facility. But now we're going to facilities all over the place. If you want, and Diane, if you want a list of those facilities at present, I can get them to you. But we're going all over. We're going down to Cape Elizabeth. We're going to Saco. We're going up to Auburn. So that's where the challenge is. And so that causes us to hire more spare drivers because we have nothing in that route scheme. And the other challenge, too, is when I talk about logistics, the bell times. And the bell times are outside of our control, especially at these outside facilities, too. So everybody has to be at the same place at 8 o'clock, but you have so much distance to travel.
So it
that's
could
a challenge.
potentially be just one person that you're bringing down, one student?
It could, but what I try to do is that we try to work it through with some of the program directors at these facilities. And what we'll do is, if they're close proximity of each other, we can put 3 students in a particular van and drop them at 3 different locations. If one will accept them a little bit earlier, so we can jump to the other facility. So that's another challenge that we face too, trying to negotiate all the time.
I imagine.
I want to just, if I can tag on to her, so we have that line item in there for that 75,000, but yet the people count didn't change. I guess that was what was confusing.
No, as far as the FTEs, like we were saying before, a lot of the, we hire spare people. So
They're not an FTE?
It's a non-benefited position, so we pay them a straight hourly rate.
Gotcha, okay.
Mike, of that 75, did I remember Lisa saying that she now has, if any student has an aide, that cost is over in her cost center?
As I understand it, yes,
So
because
that's not part of the 75?
I'm not sure if it was moved out or not.
I'll make a note of that.
Okay.
think that it stayed
I
with
thought
Brad.
that's what she said, but I can't remember.
Because presently, we are using 3 aides.
Well, it would seem like that would come under her cost center.
Right, I would suspect it is.
Yes.
I know some of the special ed is, certain things are is somewhat reimbursable from the state. Is any of the transportation or anything affiliated with it? Is there anything?
It is in the special program area of the revenue, so it precedes that benefit of looking at 1-year-old numbers as opposed to 2-year-old numbers. So it's in that area of the allocation.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much for
Much-
coming.
I hope you feel better.
Yeah.
Me too.
Hope
Thank
feel
you.
better. All right.
Are you gonna take your germs and leave?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Next,
We really like you a lot.
our next presentation is Dr. Kyle Rhodes from the Wyndham Primary School.
Okay, well, thanks for the opportunity. Probably gonna hear some common theme here or some common words over and over again of status quo and things aren't really changing. So I'll walk you through. You've got the cover sheet, and I'd be glad to answer any questions about that. But really, there is no changes to staffing. Any changes from last year to this year are just reflection of the movement of monies from different accounts to better reflect where that money should come for human resources. So it's not a case where there's new staff coming or going. It's just a better accounting of where the actual expense should reside. So looking at the budget request form, the school goals, one is a district goal around 9% kindergarten reading achievement for kindergarten, and so that's something we continue to support as a school along with the district. And the second one, I just want to make sure for any board members that may not be aware, we've been a focus school for several years. the way we met the criteria for focus school was a 2-year trend that at this point is 5 years old, and was that over a 2-year period on our MEA scores, the difference in the scores of our special education population and the difference in our scores of our regular population were significantly different. So you can look at it a couple of different ways, but the reality was that on the average, our regular ed kids were achieving higher than our special education students, which then opened up an opportunity for us as a school to write a plan to really improve our school and in specific areas. And what came along with that was some monies from the state level. So we could have opted out to no longer be a focus school. However, it has allowed us to do a lot of things that would have been more difficult to do because it would have asked taxpayers for the monies to fund them. So, for example, Project Lead the Way, which is a project-based STEM program, I would say close to 2/3 of the funding to train our teachers or to get teachers trained off-site and then come back and do the training with our teachers has been funded through those state funds for focus school. Which leads us into the next piece, which are some of the current work. As you'll see, I speak about how we're continuing to kind of try to use our technology the best we can. And one of the areas that have become more and more of a focus is not just math and literacy, but the science and technology piece itself, and that fits in with Project Lead the Way. Anyone who's been trained in Project Lead the Way, a lot of the lessons include the use of iPads. You can do the lesson without it, but it's much more engaging and dynamic with the iPads. So, and that's just a little bit about what we're doing in regards to project-based and also, which is STEM-related as well. And then, as well as a district goal, it's also a specific goal for our school is to continue with the implementation of the writing units of study, which is often referred to as the Lucy Calkins method for writing. This is the second year, a full school-wide implementation, and for some of our teachers, it's the third year of using that model. And from getting some advanced training along with that, it's important to note that at a minimum, they would say that it takes at least 3 years, if not longer, for really to get to a place of full implementation. So we're just on the cusp of that right now. So that's something that's going to continue to be a focus for next year as well in regards to professional development for teachers. And even when I observe teachers, it's often with writing, so I can give them feedback specifically around that model. Going down a little further, you'll see that something I believe that's going to emerge in the next upcoming year is around just being even more strategic than we've been. And I think if you look back over the last couple of years, I believe we've really gotten better at being strategic with how we're intervening for students, specifically in the area of literacy. Work to be done with math, and I'm sure Mrs. Hessler has kind of updated you on some of the work that we're doing as a district with that piece. However, with the literacy, we've done a lot of data collecting of what's working well for our students, and then taking that and scaling it up to be something that we do as a whole school and not just in pockets in the building. With a school of the size of primary, sometimes you can get things that are happening in certain places, and if we know they're working well, we want to expand upon that and have them be something that all kids get the opportunity to do if they need that support. And then just really quickly, box 3 and 4 there around cost center lines. There really is no major increases or decreases in the cost center lines. Any kind of adjustments really are about my careful review and also Stacy Webster's careful review of the accounts over the last couple of years, and making any slight adjustments that need to be made to really reflect the expenses that have been made and making sure they're happening in the correct categories. So I'm open to questions at this point.
This one might be more for you, Dawn. On the white pages, 185 of 253, you go down to temporary employee salary, where up near the top, second item down, the addition of that 135,323. And if you go, hang on to that, and if you go over to 187 of 253, which is, if you flip the page over, down at the very bottom, there's decreases temporary employee salary. Is that a movement? I'm trying to figure out why we've put that up there. And
Yeah, it's exactly what Kyle said. So the state continues to inform us of where they want to have the expenditures placed, and so we continue to make those changes as required by the state. You'll see one in my budget as well a little later, but that's right.
so the 135 is really just an addition of 1,000, whatever,
Right.
the normal.
Yeah,
Yep.
right.
Okay.
All right, so we've moved some things around, which intuitively would end up just being a net nothing, but our budget's gone up by 252,000, so can we get a sense of where that increase is coming from actually? Is it just personnel, health insurance, steps and lanes?
Well, one of the big pieces to that was that at the end of last year, the administration came to you folks and asked for the addition of an assistant principal, so almost 100,000 of the increase is right there. The rest would be, it's a large staff, large school, and it would be the negotiated agreements, health insurance, things of that nature predominantly.
And is the social worker addition of 0.5 and the playground assistant of 0.58 additions, are those new asks, or are those
No.
something that we approved last year as well, that it?
No, that actually was, that's a charge to regular education that had been charged, actually, I think Lisa brought that up, it had been charged to special education, really should have been charged to regular
For
education.
the social worker, and then the playground assistants?
It was the same for the playground assistants, because in the past, there had been playground assistants that had been earmarked specific for special education students, and now we serve those students in a different way. However, the staff was still there supervising kids as a whole. So they really weren't just supervising special education students, they were supervising more than special education students.
All right, that makes sense. Thank you.
Don, what are we holding for placeholder for insurance, percentage-wise?
15%.
Do you have any questions? I thought it was 11.
15.
Okay. Other questions?
Is that right?
I have a couple. I'm on page 59 of the pink sheets. There's a decrease of 7,000 in the differentials and stipends. Was that again just housekeeping and things that perhaps used to be listed that you really don't use?
So when last year, when we came with a proposal for an assistant principal, Don asked me to look for places to make reductions in last year's budgets. Those are reflected actually in this budget. So one of the areas I looked at was differentials to make reductions to.
Okay. And then the other one was just a wonder question. On page 57, there's a $23,000 decrease in professional technical services. So I was just wondering, what did we drop there?
That would be you, because I asked Stacy about that too.
I might be able to answer that before the night's over by looking at the whites, but I don't have a quick answer, so
Okay.
let me write that down. If I can answer tonight, I will. If not, I'll make sure you get the answer tomorrow. So that is 2,400, 53,400?
It's
I think it's
23,000 on page 57 of the
Yeah.
pinks.
Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
up to the accountant.
I was doing- Thank you. I might be able to answer that before the night's over.
Any other questions for Kyle? All set then.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your support. Thanks.
Thanks, Kyle. Yeah. I wonder if I should call Kyle.
All right. Our next presentation is by Jeannie Riley, who is the director of our food service program.
Hi, good evening.
Hello.
I'm Jeannie Riley. I'm the Director of School Nutrition, and I'm here to talk about our school nutrition budget. As far as our school nutrition budget goes, you know, we're all about feeding kids healthy food to support the education environment. That's really, we want to make sure that the students in Wyndham and Raymond are well fed and ready to learn the things that they're teaching them at Wyndham Primary School and Wyndham High School, Wyndham Middle School, and we want to make sure that the kids have healthy bodies and healthy minds and that they're ready to learn. As far as our budget goes, staff-wise, we've had no increases. It looks, from your cover sheet, it looks like there's an increase at from 23.4 to 24.21, but we haven't added any bodies. I think we did change the hours of one person, just tweak them from 5.5 to 6, just for hiring purposes, just so that we could attract more valuable candidates. Other than that, we haven't made a lot of changes at all to our staffing levels. And throughout our budget, the only increases I think you will see are related to equipment. The biggest increase is at Wyndham Middle School, where we have a budgeted line of $25,000 for some kitchen equipment in that kitchen. That kitchen is original to the building, and most of the equipment is original to the kitchen, so it's all quite old equipment and it's on borrowed time. So we're really looking at infusing a little bit of money into that kitchen to make it more efficient and to really be able to support the kind of cooking that we're doing now. When these kitchens were built, we were kind of a freezer to oven to serving line type of operation, and we're no longer that kind of operation. So it really requires a different type of equipment in your kitchen. So Wyndham Middle School, a $25,000, that would support a couple of, probably 2 stack ovens, and then maybe another piece of equipment that would work for us. Raymond Elementary School, we have a booster budgeted for their dishwasher, again, because that piece of equipment is just getting very old, and we know, I just had to replace one this year at Wyndham High School unexpectedly, and you have to have a booster for your dishwasher to keep everything sanitary and to meet the serving guidelines. So we just know that one at Raymond Elementary School is kind of on its last legs as well. And then the same with Manchester School's dishwasher, which I kind of have been holding in my budget as a placeholder because it continues to work, but we know that eventually it's not going to be working. So those are my increases. Unless you have questions, I don't have a lot. Marge.
On that budgeted money you were talking about for that dishwasher that you keep carrying, if we put, Dawn, this is probably for you, if we put $20,000 in that for the last, since at least 2016, what happens to it when she doesn't buy the dishwasher?
The
And the next year we've got it in
carryover
again.
is addressed annually, so at this point, that money has been utilized to reduce what is needed from the operating budget to be infused into the program, because it's not running in the black. So, for example, there is no balance at this point in the food service budget.
So the $20,000 each year has just been,
Used.
So it gets absorbed in in our regular operating expenses.
okay.
Yep.
Back to your front page, one of your front pages, your projected revenues,
Oh, yeah. Let me dig that out.
which is right after
Yep.
your cover sheets. The figures that you have is that assuming that everyone is going to pay their balance? And where do I find in here the deficit as of?
The deficit as in what is
Balance
owed
is
on
owed.
student accounts.
Right.
You would not see that reflected anywhere here. The projected revenues is based on assuming that we receive funds for every meal that we serve. This is based on the current level of meals that we're serving, and then just an Excel spreadsheet that says, okay, if lunch is $3, this is how much we're
It's a
going to
projection of-
So it's really a projection, because we could serve more, or all of a sudden every student could decide to brown bag it. We hope they don't. But that would also change our revenue stream. But you won't see what we're not receiving reflected here. It definitely affects our bottom line.
May I? So what I would say is that we had been carrying that as a negative balance for a period of years. And I think it was 2 years ago that we paid it off,
This,
so.
this
Just
past
this
summer.
past year,
Last year,
okay.
yeah.
So the point is that we're not going to carry that. So to the extent that there is a negative balance, we're going to clean the books every year. So that's another reason why you have the $75,000 operating budget expense in our budget, you know, to cover what the deficits might be for that program, for the whole program. You
But the
see-
75's in your budget, not in
Right.
ours.
Right.
Right.
Well, it's your budget, but yes.
Well,
Yeah.
The bigger budget.
Yeah.
right now it's yours. No.
Yeah, okay.
Your assistant.
So how do we handle equipment in other areas of the budget? I mean, we do
Yeah.
it by facility, or, I mean, I'm just wondering if this is the best way to handle like the dishwasher.
Well, historically, in schools across the state, because this is an ancillary account, or however you want to phrase that, it's outside of the operating budget with federal funds that are infused due to the free and reduced lunch rates. The program's really responsible for itself. So you're exactly correct. When it's a high school equipment expense, that'll come out of, generally speaking, the maintenance and operation budget. But we're trying to make sure that all the expenses to food service, because it is outside of the budget, is paid for by food service. And that isn't to say that some year she's going to be in a position where she can't afford some $50,000 piece of equipment, and instead of saying 75,000, you know, you'd be looking at 125, potentially, I'm saying, as a proposed request.
Since I've been here, all of our major pieces of equipment that we've purchased have come directly out of school nutrition funds or grant funds. Always nice.
What is our current free and reduced number?
Percentage?
Yes.
It's about 33%.
Oh, so that's gone down a little bit from.
It has gone down yeah, a little bit, a little bit.
3%.
Yeah. Any other
Thank you.
questions?
Other?
Another question, Judy, I just wanted to shout out to Carrie Burns, Steele.
Burn steel, yeah.
And as you may know, I did work with her on asks and requests, and she's just was awesome and very helpful and very professional, and I really appreciated her, so I thought
Thank
we should know
you.
that.
We, and I'll just give a shout out to my entire staff, because it's not me in those kitchens making those meals. They are an amazing bunch of professionals and very passionate and dedicated to making sure that every kid gets the attention that they need, and that every kid is well fed. They were really great. We have a really amazing team. Any other questions?
Jeannie, just
Yeah.
for clarification, the school, the FTE for school nutrition, that's really our chef, correct?
Yes, that is Chef Sam,
Okay.
who is currently on maternity leave.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Great.
Great. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Thank you.
I'll get home before the snow.
So I was able to contact Mr. Nash. He is on his way. Might be a few more minutes, so I could start on mine, or we could.
Yeah,
Wait.
why don't we switch it?
Okay. Thank you.
I could
So-
tap dance.
What's that?
I could tap dance.
No, thank you.
Oh, never mind.
So-
I think we'd rather hear Dawn. You get it.
So as I normally do, I'm starting with fun facts for finance. And what I like to do is kind of characterize it as an umbrella. So you have the state, if you will, in terms of its revenue and expenses, and then you have us in RSU 14. And I just thought it might be helpful for the board and the public to know, some of the factors that influence our total operating budget before we do get into mine, which I will certainly do. But I thought it was important to let you know that the consumer price index is currently 2.8% higher than last year. That's January to January. That the state of Maine education budget is $1.297 million, which is a $133 million increase. However, as I think's been reported, the RSU 14's assessed valuation of the two communities increased at a 5% pace last year, whereas the state average increase was 2%. and our enrollment was essentially steady. So that has a deleterious effect on the size of the pie that you're going to get from the State Department of Education for allocation for schools, because you're perceived to be wealthier because your assessed values are outpacing the state average. So that's not good news. And local mills for education, Heather Perry, who's superintendent in Gorham, had requested some information from 16 surrounding communities relative to the actual mill rate of education only. So you know you have three components in your tax bill, which is your town, your schools, and your county. But what we found, we have the data for, is that of the 16 communities that were polled, the high mill rate, which is per 1,000, is $17.25, and the low is 9.00 per mill, with an average of 12.82. Wyndham ranked number 15 near the bottom at 12.82, and Raymond was at the bottom at 9.00. So I think it's reflecting what Sandy has said in his presentation of the budget, which is you're getting a very good value for your education. Yes?
Can I just ask for a clarification? I thought I heard you say that the average was 12.82, and then Wyndham at number 15 was 12.82.
You did. And so there's an error in that, and I think I have that data, so I will try to get that for you.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
I think I have that with me, Pete. Thank you. So the other thing is that clearly we're a people-intensive organization, as we know, so it's about people. And with that, I thought it would be interesting for you to note, and I've lamented this, I hope not in a too negative way with you folks as I see you in the hallway and whatnot, but there was a time when the operating budget was probably like this big, and we now have 4,173 active accounts in the budget book that you have before you. So it's a drill down situation whereby the state is trying to capture right to the the penny certain expenses for certain things, which makes it really difficult for you folks and certainly for us. But because you see these shifts and you wonder, why is the shift? And often it is because they've decided that they want to know more about a specific expense, and so they create the expense line. We have to figure out where the money was being spent and put it into that. So I'm saying that for you as well as the public, just to know that it isn't because we're trying to build a 5,000 line budget. It's because there are requirements that come to us that make it necessary for us to do that. So we have 565 regular employees, about 185 temporary, so we have 750 folks on payroll at any time, which makes you the largest business, certainly in the Wyndham-Raymond area. And so for the budget itself, salaries represent about $27.5 million. And that is due to negotiated agreements with 3 labor groups, which you have, which is the educational support professionals. And that increase for the new year will be 2.5%. And in 2020, that will go to 3%. For the teachers, in this particular budget, the increase on average was 3.83% and will be 3.69% in the subsequent year. Administrators will receive 1.5% of an increase and 2% in 20. So that's a big piece of, obviously, the expense to the district. Health insurance across the district costs over $6.5 million. And for those that may not be aware of it, for Anthem Choice Plus, the single premium is $9,100. And at the other end of the spectrum, the full family is $25,000 now for one premium. So that total of just those 2 accounts is $34 million of the $41 million request, which is 72% of the budget right there. Other insurances, which would be dental, Social Security, workers' comp, Maine PERS, property liability, workers' comp, $2.7 million. And debt service, which the public had voted for. We have 6 years left on Wyndham High School, 1 year left on RES. That's another $2.5 million. So just these items that I've spoken to represent $39.2 million, or 83.2% of the proposed budget without even talking about operations, electricity, fuel, and all the things that go into that component of the budget. So I thought that might be of interest.
It is interesting.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, my pen blew up while I was trying to take notes.
Yeah.
Can you email that to us?
Actually, I think I might have copies. I should have given them to you. I'll pass that along. I think I have some here. So
'Cause that was fun.
fun facts.
Yeah, different definitions.
You obviously weren't picking up on my element of sarcasm. Thank you.
Okay, so now,
Who's being sarcastic on that, too?
No, I have to blow my pen. Seriously, that was
No,
not
it's passing
sarcasm.
the pen.
Thank you.
so my budget actually holds your stuff as well. So if you look at the pink sheets, and you look at the cost codes from the left to the right, you'll see cost codes that are 4 digits, 4 digits, and 4 digits. Any digits that come in the third place at number 2310. So I'm looking 1, 2, 3, 4 descriptions down. 1,000, 000, 2310, for example. So any 2310 is actually a school board expense, just so you know. And so some of the things that have changed in my budget have to do with similar things that I've spoken to earlier, which is the state requiring a different method of accounting for things. So I was able to talk to Diana, which I appreciate the call today to kind of give me a heads up. So you can see that now in your area for legal services and financial, the legal is clearly that. The financial is your audit, actually your independent audit. And those numbers, which are 105,000 and then 18,000, used to be disaggregated across all the district. And then they said, no, we don't want you to do that. We want you, with the exception of special education, which is what you heard from Lisa Monday night, that should come into this particular cost code. So that's a reclassification of those monies. Now, when you get down to 2,500, that actually is the business office. So that same thought, if you go 3 digits in and you see the, or 3 sequences, I should say, and you see 2,500, that's the business office. And the temporary, the secretarial salaries are inclusive of the request that we have for the data person, registrar. So that's what that, a big part of that $68,000, actually over $51,000 is for that salary. So those, I think, are the, well, no, I'll take you to page 3 of 84, if I might. And you'll see property and liability insurance, and you'll see reductions. What happens to insurance across the board, as you may recall, is that the health insurance rates are not provided to us until after the budget process, generally speaking. It's been generally that way, although there's been a couple of years where we did receive it. We're able to make those adjustments before the May meeting, if you'll remember. We did not have the rate adjustments for property and liability insurance. And so what we take for property and liability insurance is the actual cost of the year that we're in. We talk to the agent who gives us their estimate of what they think the increase will be, and that was placed in the budget. So last year, on version 8 of your budget that is currently operating, we had put in a 12% placeholder because that's what the agent had told us, came in much less than that. So now we've used our actual number with a 6% increase, and it still comes in less than that prior year. Okay, so I know it's a little confusing, but I thank Diana for asking that question because I knew that would probably be a question you would have as well. Yes?
Going back up to the school board,
Yep.
the differential stipends for the school committee, I mean, I know what I get a year. Is this our pay, so to speak, or our?
Yes, yeah.
How come
Where's
there's
the
no
rest of-
raise there?
We don't,
Because it's a
if you-
state statute.
is there something else in that? Because if you add it up, that's not what we make, I'm sorry. I don't know, unless you people getting more than I am, but
We didn't want to tell you, Marge.
Sorry, Marge.
Sorry, Mark.
It's performance-based.
must be. Must be.
Oh, wow.
Is there other stuff in there besides?
I don't see it in the white sheet, so I'm gonna have to answer that tomorrow.
Well, that's high.
Well, I get 600 and something a year.
I'll verify the number. I don't have an answer right now, so
Five
I'll get
something,
that for you.
Between 5 and 6, depends how many meetings we have. You
Well,
would
it
think.
depends on who shows up.
Yeah.
Oh, no, November.
So I'll
Yes.
check that out.
Either that or we want the rest of our money.
There you
No,
go.
I'm kidding. And then, I kind of got lost when you went down, but when you went, stay in the 2310, but when you went down to the 56,000,
Mhm.
it says supplies, community service.
Yep.
I just want to, not the number, but what is that?
Yeah, that has come up too, thank you. Let me find which pages those are on. So that's at the bottom of
Like the
page 4, look at the bottom of page 4 of 253, please. And so that's for the budget newsletters, mailings, recognition awards, the newsletter, which is the link, retiree awards, the opening day costs, grandparent lunches, food, a lot of it's food, strategic so I'm glad you brought that up. So strategic planning related supplies, Sandy talked to me about that this afternoon. So there's a $10,000 number, top of page 5 of, that could be reduced to $2,500. So we know that we'll be able to reduce $7,500 of that for version 5.
And I guess we can bring sandwiches.
There you go.
Wraps.
So while I have you, just before I give you up to somebody else, can we go, because I just need to, if we go to the tab that says category budget, which is prior to your piece of the budget,
Category budget.
and this is the one that lists all the articles. I just had a couple of questions.
Yeah,
And I
mine
figure you're the one
booklet's
to
different,
answer
so
it.
give me a
Where
second.
are you again?
Category, it says category budget,
Oh, okay.
the tab.
Yep.
I just had a couple of questions on that.
Hey, could you hang on kindly?
Yep.
I have a different looking book, so.
Oh, okay, I'm waiting.
I'm with you now.
Okay, I just wanted to understand it. Because as I went down, if I remember correctly, you said CTE you're going to take out, right?
I have not taken out CTE.
You're going to adjust, though?
Yes,
You're going to make an adjustment minus the part 2,
right.
or whatever,
Well, if
or whatever
they-
piece
they're in-
is more.
So they were in work session today. I haven't heard, I don't know if anybody else has, what the actual action's going to be. We presume it's going to happen, but we're still waiting for it to legally happen. The answer is yes if that occurs.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And if you go down to Article 5, the instructional technology had a big jump. It jumped by, it went up in increments as the years went by, but this year it had a jump of 186,234, and I wasn't sure what that instructional technology was.
I can't answer that right
Could you
now,
make-
so I'm sorry to
can
say,
you get
but I
back
certainly
to me?
will find out for you.
And in that same article, and I wasn't sure, library services had a jump of 78,000, and I wasn't sure if that was in Chris's, was that a new employee plus?
I'll find out, make sure you get an answer.
All right, and then in Article 6, the Board of, I'm not sure who the Board of Education is, but they cost $128,345.
Certification,
Is it for certification?
What
mean-
what are you asking? I'm sorry.
Article 5,
Yep,
I mean 6,
Article
sorry.
6.
Article 6,
yep,
System Administration. It says Board of Education.
yes.
that had a big jump. I mean, it went up, 149 to 150, but then it went up to 279, which was a jump of 128,000.
That one we did just answer. That's the reclassification of the legal and the audit.
Oh, is that what that meant? Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I just didn't know what that fell under. And then there was a jump on, nope, that was normal. And I got the one with it. That's all I have.
All right, we'll find out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You didn't ask
No
about the
other
reductions.
questions on this?
Yeah.
On his piece?
There you go.
Oh, she does. I gotta get back to it.
So, any other questions on my costs? And I better go back to it. but-
I do if nobody else does. Let me know when you're ready, Don.
Yep, thank you. Okey-doke.
All right, going to the section, page 3 of 84, the pink sheets, looking at the principal and interest for the
Yeah.
debt service.
Yep.
Last year, if people remember, was the first year that we broke out the principal for the two schools that we had debt service remaining on,
Mm-hmm.
and the same with the interest. Now, I'm looking at this year, and there's no interest expense on one of the schools, and I'm just wondering why that is.
Yep, I'm gonna pull this page. I have debt service in my book. Just give me a second.
What page you on, Pete?
Page 3 of 84, about the middle of the page. Last year,
Oh, I
The-
can see it.
debt interest was 34,789, and there's still debt on that school, so you would expect there'd be interest as
There's
well.
2 years left, right?
That's our yes?
23, 24, it looks like. Is the final payment.
What's the high school? Just a second. All right, so maybe we need to reclass that. So the number is correct, meaning that it, well, it's interesting that the bond schedule, I think it is actually correct in the pink sheet, so let me try to describe this. So when you go out for bond, there's a schedule of payment, as you know. And with that, it looks like they have, because it's at the end of the term, are continuing with the principal only, but there is no interest for the next, for this year or next.
So we prepaid some of the
Yeah.
interest on the remaining
Yeah.
balance.
Yep.
All right.
You familiar with rule of 78s? Financing?
Wanna sit next to him?
Good catch, though.
Did you have anything else, Pete?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Okay. Here's Bill.
I do. I don't know what page it is,
I gotta get back.
but I noticed that the school resource officer is 45,000.
Yes.
Do we split a cost with the town, or is that, how does
It's
that work?
50/50.
It's 50/50? Okay.
Just on top of that, if he gets a pay raise, we don't pay half his raise, do we?
I would say
I'm
we
just-
would. We
Why
put-
wouldn't we?
This is
Because I
the-
thought we had a standard,
No.
originally, didn't we have a standard, because it was a lot, it was never until
It was
like.
$10,000.
That's right.
And then we said we would pay for 50% of whatever the
Oh,
cost was.
okay, that's fine.
Yep.
Sorry.
No,
I just
that's
knew-
all right.
I knew it was flat rate.
That's
that's fine.
half of everything, salary and benefits?
When you are able,
Yes.
would you mind sending us a job description for the registrar?
I have a draft. I'd be happy. Yeah.
Okay.
But please consider it a draft, because we're still mulling it over, too.
I'll consider it. I'll consider to consider.
Okay.
It's a very feisty group.
Yeah.
Do you have handy, and maybe it's not, maybe it's been redistributed, but we're always interested in the substitute line and how that, is there a chunk That you can say, last year it was this much, this year we're projecting this much?
I can get that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'd like that. And then, I'm trying to connect the dots here with the health and the, I'm working off of explaining your budget, and I know probably what I have is not accurate as far as the health and the remaining benefits percentage.
That's a different document.
Yes, it's not in the book.
Okay.
It's,
Yep.
I
Okay.
guess what I'm interested in is where did we land percentage-wise for health costs last year?
7.14.
7.14.
The 20-year average is 7.5.
Okay, and you,
But there's been a high of 20.5 and a couple of years of 11. So we've budgeted 15. If we go to 12, we would reduce the budget by 146,000. But I wouldn't recommend much less than, we don't have a clue how that's going to turn out. And it's very difficult to go up. It's a lot easier to come down.
what about the other remaining benefits? I don't know.
I'm thinking dental is 5%. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We
And
did, I believe we did 6 on property and liability. Workers' comp is based on salaries. That will go up. But that's based on salaries, so it's not like I can just tell you it's a certain percentage because it's a formula.
Okay. Okay, I think everything else has been answered. I think I'm good, thank you.
Okey dokey.
Dawn, on page 8, the white pages of 253 down near the bottom, we have transfer out for school nutrition of 75,000.
Right.
Is that to cover what? Is that,
Yes, so when you were back on your category budget, you'll see
Right.
at the very bottom, there's 75,000 plus your contingency at 280. Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm good.
No other? I just have to ask you again because now I can't remember if you answered my question. You probably did, but under our section, remember there was the decrease in the other professional services, 17,000?
Yeah, because you were paying,
What-
you were also disaggregated for the legal and the audit. So everybody was disaggregated last year, now it's in that big number.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right.
So we really don't know, we'd have to go back in the book to add up all of the different ones to get what we spent on legal last year, correct? Or do you
Oh, I
have
can
it?
give you that. I don't have it tonight, but if you want to know what we spent on legal last year, that's,
Mhm.
sure.
Can you break it out between special ed and regular, just,
That I can't do,
Okay,
because
that's
the
fine.
bill doesn't,
Yep.
we'd have to literally go through
no,
all the bills. to-
that's fine,
So you want to know last year's legal costs?
right,
Okay.
Or what we budgeted for legal
right.
last year, just so we can do
And what?
apples to apples comparison.
right.
Well, yeah.
I'm trying to think if I might have that someplace. One expense, I mean, just to be clear, was that this was the first year that we ever hired a negotiator. And
Negotiation.
so that's an anomaly, if you will. That's not going to happen, but maybe never, but every 3 years probably, so.
All right.
Okay?
Will happen.
Yeah.
All right.
All set?
Thank
All
you.
right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right.
Bye.
And our last presentation, we have Mr. Tom Nash, who is the Director of our Adult Education.
Hi, Tom.
Good evening, how are we doing?
Good.
Thank you very much. I wish I could have been here a little earlier. I thought I would try to get here at 7:15, and then you were really ahead of schedule. So, well, thank you. And again, thanks for this opportunity to come to you tonight to talk about our budget. I know it's we're really going to be focusing on just the budget itself and not so much programming. But I do want to mention I have with me tonight Stacia Dugas, who is our Career Pathways Workforce Education Coordinator, and Shelley Pride, who's our College Transition Coordinator. So if you do have some questions, maybe they can answer it if I can't. And then Kathy Renault was on her way here, but I told her not to come. She lives in Scarborough, and I said, you know, you'll be fine, just stay home. So, there's not a lot really in my budget to talk about in terms of increases and decreases, and I'd be happy to go down through each page with you. There's just a few pages of my budget, but primarily our increases are shown in some salary increases that either negotiated salaries or they're ones that are recommended by central office, and then it's the increase in benefits. There is a fairly large increase in the administrative group health insurance. That is basic for myself. I'm now accessing the health insurance where I wasn't prior. There also was a cash in lieu of $11,000 that was made available to administrators prior. And so that has been reduced from this budget, and now there's a line in there, and I'm not sure what your page is, but within my budget, it's the first few lines within my budget that there's a large increase in the group health insurance. Again, beyond that, there's some slight increases and decreases throughout my budget based on what we see as trends in our programming. So it might be that, or we also might be seeing increases in printing costs or increases in other things that we need to have to run our program, other overhead costs. So we adjust slightly up and down based on previous year's expenses, mid-year, take a snapshot of our expenses at mid-year and try to project out the best we can. As I've mentioned in years past, it is sometimes difficult to predict how many students we'll have coming through our doors. I think the K-12 system, I know you do have students moving in and out all the time, but you probably have a lot more, there's a lot more confidence in how many students you'll have in general in any given year, and we don't know that. If we build it, we hope they come, and sometimes they don't. I can tell you this past year there was quite a few challenges with the weather. There was quite a few challenges with people taking their discretionary funds and paying for oil. So that affected our enrollments. I think, it's not, our semester is not done. In fact, we have classes starting usually sometimes every week throughout the semester. We had a few tonight. And we had, two people walk through the door just today to sign up for class tonight. So you never know what we're going to have for enrollments. But I think we're going to see, when all said and done, maybe 5-8% decrease this year, which maybe be 100 or 150 students fewer than we had in the past year. So, and we try to offer courses based on what the students want, what the community wants, what they give us for feedback. And then again, you offer it, but you can't always guarantee that they're going to walk through the door and take those classes. So we do what we can to support the district's strategic plan, and I think you noted that in my packet that I sent to you. What do we do to help promote a K to adult system? And I think we do a great job with co-missioning and working towards the strategic plan of the district. We work quite closely with the high school in bringing students in that may be disenfranchised there or looking for a different option. And it's nice to be able to walk right down the hallway and say, ask adult ed what they can do for you. And it's a nice situation we're in right now. We do have, and I'm bouncing around for programming because really it's what we do. It dictates what we're asking money for. So, we are serving. We had 68 students contact us about wanting to come to our academic program, and then 65 of those actually came through the door. And we hope to keep our fingers crossed, we hope to have 20, 25, 30 students graduating in June. So again, they come to us with different levels of needs, credits, goals, aspirations, and we try to work with them the best we can to make sure we help them on that path to their goal. So there's the budget. Now you have an additional page which I think is unique to adult ed, and I would just refer to it as the summary page. It shows my expenses, my revenues for both my regular budget and my special projects. As you note there, again, the biggest increase is in general administration, and then that is salaries and benefits, really, when it comes down to it. And that may be affected, if I'm understanding Don correctly, that they may be affected with the rates when they come in for the insurances. Is that, would that affect?
Mm-hmm.
That could possibly affect this as well. And again, we base our enrichment courses, our vocational, which is a workforce training, career pathway stuff, high school completion, and literacy, again, based on, as I mentioned before, last year's costs, mid-year's costs, projected expenses, what do we see for trends. Under our special projects, we have 2 major grants, Adult Basic Education, which is our AFLA grant, and a College Transitions grant, which we share with Greater Gloucester. And then we do an entrepreneur program, which I'll explain in a second. But those 2 big grants for us, it's big. They were both going to undertake a quick change this year, where we actually were being asked to work as a hub, Region 8 hub, which is programs in the greater Portland area, be Portland and Gorham, Westbrook, ourselves, Greater Gloucester, South Portland, and believe it or not, Freeport, to work together for efficiency purposes, to try to save money on administration, save money on professional development, save money on materials, sharing teachers, and so forth. That AFLA grant was taken off that schedule, and it's going to be a continuation grant again for probably the 6th or 7th year in a row. And then the College Transitions grant is going to be required to have us work together as a hub to develop that. And ABE serves basic skills, English as a second language, high school completion programs. College Transitions is what it says, helping people to transition to college, whether they're adults or even recently graduated students that might need a little bit extra push in the math and their English skills. And the entrepreneur program is what we do. We kind of put that in there. If a business contacts us and says, such as Grondon has done this year, can you please come provide some Excel training for us? Then that's where that falls. So we'd have no idea if how many people are going to contact us to do entrepreneur type activities. And on the revenue side of things, you can see that we do have to. We wanted to obviously have a 0% increase in our local property tax, which I'm sure people would be very pleased to see. And we'll be then using some of our carry forward funds, some of our contingency fund for adult ed to make sure that we do not have an increase. And you also see on that page that we had an increase of almost $14,000 in state subsidy. That's because 2 years ago we had those expenses that qualified. So our program growth 2 years ago, and hopefully will continue to grow. Maybe not this year, but that we'll continue to see that state appropriation, state subsidy amount increase. And what's not noted here is that 16 to 20-year-old money, we report on that twice a year, and those students that we serve actually goes to the general fund for the central for RSU 14, and it can be, I want to say, in the 50,000-60,000 sometimes. Is that correct, Don?
I'm not sure.
Okay, it's quite a bit of money depending on how many students we're serving that are of 16 to 20-year-old age. So that's it. So that's our expense side, our revenue side. And I want to know if you have any questions for myself or for Stacia or for Shelley.
I have one question. Tom, can you give page 11 on the pink sheets? It looks like we got a other professional salary increase of $5,000. Is that for all personnel?
Those are enrichment classes. So if we think we're going to offer more enrichment classes, then we're going to just increase that amount there. But we're also going to bring in the revenues to cover that additional cost.
Okay.
So those enrichment classes pay for themselves and also generate income revenue to go towards our overhead.
Okay. That was it. That's all I have.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Wow.
Okay. Thank you all
Thank you,
very much.
guys.
Yep.
May I have a moment to address some of the questions that came up, because I can answer some of them now?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks, Tom.
Okay, thanks, have a good night.
Thank you guys for coming.
Stay ahead of this. It's not snowing yet, just so you know.
It's not gonna.
It's not going to. Midnight, we heard now.
Yeah.
It's going out to sea.
So, fun facts.
Oh,
Fun
good,
facts.
fun facts.
Wyndham number 15 at $10.48 a mill.
Fun facts.
Wait, again, what was it again?
10.48. Don't you hate
Oh,
that?
man. 10.48.
So that's that one. So then to legal costs, we have this year budgeted $115,253.
Wait a minute.
Wait.
Can you, I'm sorry, can you repeat?
115,000.
253.
What are we talking about?
Legal
Legal costs?
expenses.
Legal costs. Is that budgeted or actual?
That's budgeted. And so that is the disconnect, because I have with me tonight last year's actual, which was 91,409. That's last year. So we did have negotiations, but you also know that you're under challenge in a couple of areas. So I'll review that, but I'm not sure that's probably going to change, but just want you to have that. And was there something else? So category budget, I still need to do job description. Oh, substitute cost information. So it looks like across the district, bless you, the current budget is, I'm gonna give a rough number, $844,000, going to $879,000, which is a 4.14% increase.
That's,
It's a biggie.
wow,
Yeah.
that's a big number.
Was that last year's budgeted and then this year's budgeted, or was that?
Yes.
Is there a real? Do we have a? what
I
do
don't
we-
have it here.
Thank you, an
No.
sorry, an actual?
Yeah.
As Pete said, close enough.
Close.
That's all I can do tonight. So there's a few
Okay.
things I need to get to, but
All right. Well, I guess we are through. If there's no more questions.
I'm not able to talk on the agenda.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? It is unanimous.